Hey, Slapdog! The Brainiacs are ready.
Welcome into LeatherBrainz. Your host, Slapdog, here, and the NFL draft has been completed. And that's really going to be the point of conversation here today. So we're going to talk about everything that has happened, the draft fallout, the draft wins, the losses. It's really going to be a draft-heavy conversation and episode. And then we're also going to wrap this thing up with some leather burns. So we have brought some topics today to discuss that maybe irk us, maybe frustrate us, or maybe something that's just so ridiculously stupid that we wanted to bring it to the table and talk about it. It may or may not be NFL related. So let's jump in, boys. Let's start with what every single talking head in NFL media is discussing right now, that being Shedeur Sanders. This whole Shedeur Sanders arc has been absolutely insane, and he was finally drafted in the 5th round. Not the first round, 2nd, 3rd, or 4th, but the 5th round of the NFL draft, which was quite a surprise to a lot of people, as Shedeur had kind of been touted as a top 5 quarterback, a top 5 pick in this upcoming draft, and instead he fell to the 5th round.
Can we just give Shedeur a quick round of applause?
Yeah,
for getting drafted.
He got
congrats.
drafted. Man.
Hey, congrats.
Making significantly less with his rookie contract than he would have if he just would have stayed in college, which we'll talk
100%,
about.
100%. So I think we all have our own thoughts and opinions here as to what had happened. Obviously, like I mentioned, there's been a lot of discussion about this with the talking heads in the NFL space. But what happened here, boys? What happened for Shedeur Sanders to fall to the 5th round?
Here's a lesson to everybody. You could be the greatest at your job. You could be the greatest sales rep that ever existed. If you go into an interview and then you just absolutely bomb it and everybody hates you, you're not going to get the job. Like, you're just not going to get it. And this is whatever you want to say about the rumors or anything that came out. This 100% had to do with him, how he presented himself to his team, the baggage he may or may not get with his dad. You know, you had Shiloh Sanders, his brother, fire Dion as his agent and hired somebody else. So there's very obviously some turmoil, some things that are going on there. And it doesn't matter what you say or how you think. It doesn't matter how good you think you are. The teams are going to tell you. And the draft is ruthless because they do not care. They're not here to just do some cute little storyline. He bombed his interview. I think it was pretty obvious, and that led him where he was.
It's also just possible that he's just not all that good at football. I mean, this is something that everyone's been saying now after the whole jersey retirement fiasco. It's like, okay, yeah, he was good at Colorado. Like, he made some good plays. He also had no offensive line, so it's difficult to gauge like how good he actually is in a competent offense. But at some point in time, regardless of the baggage, regardless of your attitude, regardless of the way you conduct interviews, regardless of who your dad is, if you can play football, you're going to get drafted. And he didn't get drafted as early as he thought. And I think at the end of the day, everything else is just noise. The tape speaks for itself, and these NFL execs were like, the play on the field, the footwork, the arm talent, whatever it might be, is not at the level it needs to be to deal with all the noise. And that's ultimately what happened. And I think even though we expected him to go early, it's not really that surprising. I think we're all having this reaction to it because it's been such a big storyline and everyone's been talking about it. But it's really not that surprising that someone like Shedeur went in the 5th round.
You could even look at somebody like Quinn Ewers from Texas, who super talented, super gifted, could start on any college team in the country if he wanted to, out of maybe a handful. And he also went really late. And he's considered one of the, top quarterback It just shit happens. The teams value things they value. And unless I think the one thing, like, if we're going to get into the X's and O's of it, I think if Shedeur was more mobile, I think it would have helped his cause. But he's like an average pocket passer is how they looked at him. And then you have the other stuff that weighed into it, and it tears you out where it tears you out.
Well, and let's explore some of the rumors, because there's been a lot of them. And I think one that stands out to me, I believe, was Brian Daboll, head coach for the Giants. Obviously, we know that the Giants needed a head coach. We knew the Giants needed a quarterback. We knew the Browns needed a quarterback. The Steelers needed a quarterback. And in fact, the Giants with the third overall pick, did not select a quarterback. They actually took a defensive lineman, and then they went back into the first round. Everybody thought, oh, maybe they're going to grab Shedeur, and then they grabbed Dart instead, which I think kind of surprised some people, perhaps, because Shedeur was being talked about as maybe the QB2 in this draft, right behind Cam Ward. Brian Daboll came out and said, hey, this guy didn't prepare at all. He came into the interview process and was very arrogant. And I might be kind of summarizing and injecting some words that were not necessarily said by Brian Daboll, but the consensus was that he was kind of arrogant. Brian Daboll had given him a package, like an offensive install, and wanted to review it with him. And he didn't even, according to Daboll, didn't even look at it, didn't even study it. He didn't show up to the pro day. You know, he thought he was too good and his britches were too big. And I think we kind of saw that play out here throughout this entirety of the draft. And then compounded with the fact that, as we've been talking about, his dad is obviously Deion Sanders, who is, you know, a very talented football player, but Shedeur's name has been in the headlines because of his dad for years. And what they've done, you know, they started at a small college. They went to Colorado. He brought them all along. They, you know, went and did, I don't even want to say great things. He got his jersey retired for going like 9-13 or some shit. So they didn't even do incredible there, right? But, you know, Alan, you mentioned you show up to an interview. That's what he was doing with these teams. And the kind of the consensus, and not just from Brian Daboll, but a lot of these NFL execs, the reports that are coming out are that, like, he was arrogant. He didn't really seem like he studied what they were giving him and trying to, like, figure that out. And I think that kind of you look at the physical attributes of an athlete, Scotty, like you mentioned, where, yeah, if you're physically gifted, maybe you can kind of outlook some of that. Is Shedeur at that level? Nah, probably not. So what are the intangibles? What are the things that these NFL teams are going to be looking at that are saying, hey, I want this guy, or I think this guy is going to be a good fit, because maybe he doesn't have the mobility that we're looking for. Maybe he's just an average pocket passer. What's going on up here? Does he have that intangible skill where he's going to take you to the next level, not because he is an incredible athlete per se, good athlete, obviously he's in the NFL and we're not, so obviously he is a good athlete, but does he have the mental capacity to help us move to the next level? And when you show up to that job interview and you're kind of kicking your feet up and you're like, I'm the guy, I know I'm the guy, and I'm not going to put in the work, yeah, nobody's going to want you. Nobody is going to say, hey, that's our guy, because obviously it played out.
Yeah, there were some stories of him showing up and being just like cooked with cologne, just like you said, super arrogant, didn't care, his way. And some of that you saw even last season at Colorado. He'd like throw his team under the bus, or we can't run the ball, or, you know, when he played Nebraska, he said, well, how many times did Dylan Raiola get touched? Like alluding to the fact that we didn't win and I didn't play good because my offensive line wasn't good. And it's like, NFL isn't going to put up with that shit. And this is the harsh reality, I think, for a lot of people. And if you don't follow the NFL as closely, or you were just interested in the storyline that was Shedeur, and I know I was watching because I'm like, when is he actually going to go? Is there a chance he doesn't even go if he goes undrafted? And this is a business. And in Slaps, you know this firsthand. You got somebody you're trying to hire and they show up a certain way. You're not going to freaking hire them. It doesn't matter how good you think they are. If you can't trust them, you know, and you can't trust them with your business, it's not going to happen. And this is what happened. And so, I mean, this is how it played out. I thought my favorite thing about all this was people digging up old Twitter receipts from things Deion had said, where he's like, you know, we're going to play where we want, and imagine playing in Cleveland. And then the one that I loved was when he was like chirping at somebody and was like, my son's going top 5. And then it got like Twitter noted in like the community update, Shedeur did not go top 5. So I listen, as much as they talk, you got to be willing to accept it. And I will say this about Shedeur after all this. And like we talked about this last episode. We don't know him personally. I have no idea how he is. This is how he is outwardly, but I will say the part that stood out to me was that even when he had the party, it didn't go well the second day. He's still waiting. And, you know, there's all this waiting. His response, his interview video of him, he was smiling. Hey, God bless, you know, this is such a great day. And like, I think to me that stood out more than anything he did before the draft, anything that he might have done there. It shows like, okay, he still is like confident in what he can do. He's not down on himself. He's not fighting it. Maybe he realized, maybe there was a come to Jesus moment where he was like, I kind of bombed this interview. So to me, if I'm a Browns fan, there's a couple of things that might be playing out in your favor. One, they drafted Dillon Gabriel as well. They obviously have a slew of quarterbacks, which we'll talk about. But I think what this forces Shedeur to do is now I have to show up as a professional. There are things I have to do. So if he can take this and he can learn from it, he can shut everybody up. Everybody that was laughing about him on draft day, he can turn around. Maybe he'll be a starting NFL quarterback and be productive and give us all the finger, which, I think that's what if you're a Browns fan, that's what you should be rooting for. I think if you're a fan of the NFL, you should be rooting for it. Like he has talent. He also, I think, what was it? Colorado had like some of the most, they had quite a few wide receivers drafted as well. And it's like, well, somebody was throwing to those guys, and who was that? So there's something to be said. I think if he can pick himself up off the mat, I think it'll be good. It's just this is what happens when you bomb an interview and you're kind of a jackass. So
let's put a bookmark in the talking positively about Shedeur, because I don't want to get there just yet. We will, I promise you, but let's not go there just yet. There are a couple things here. I want to bring up Mel Kiper, because this is something that. This was really bad. Like, Mel Kiper should probably lose his job for this.
He had to have had money on this, didn't he?
The way that he reacted, and if all of you listeners or viewers out there have not seen it, I highly recommend you just Google Mel Kiper.
Shedeur rant.
Shedeur rant and temper tantrum Shedeur, and it's going to pop up. He kind of got in an argument with the co-hosts or the co-commentators of the draft, and it really, like, I mean, he was freaking out and like kind of screaming at him. Yeah, it was like, this is ridiculous. He went on to say that, like, and I'm going to summarize this I'm going to truncate this quite a bit, but it was essentially like the NFL doesn't know how to look at quarterbacks and how to rank quarterbacks and how to, scout for good quarterbacks. I've been doing this for 50 years. I know Shedeur should be a top 5. I can't believe these teams are passing on him. And it got to the point where the other like co-host commentators, they can't say shut up Reese. It was Reese. Him and Reese started going at it a little bit, and Reese was just like, yeah, okay, we hear you. Shut up
already.
It was so bad. And I'm like, why are you like stroking his ego so much? And I wanted to say something else there, but
nice. Well, he might be. He get some grease out of that hair and put it on his hands, and he could probably do a number on anybody. I think the thing that was most annoying is there was players getting drafted with actual stories and positive things and like real needs, and he was like obsessed over Shedeur. I don't understand why Shedeur is not drafted yet. I don't know why no team's taking him. Because they don't fucking want to, dude. Just shut up and watch the draft. Like, they're filling other needs. Like, not everybody needs Shedeur. I think his rants made watching the ESPN like version of the draft impossible. Like, I switched to NFL Network immediately. Like, there was no reason to even watch ESPN's coverage. It's bad. Them talking, Mel Kiper talking about Shedeur is bad. The other thing I thought was bad, and I know we're talking about Mel Kiper, and he was just annoying as shit. I think everybody was over him. But like, I thought like the way the NFL did the draft, some of the things they did on draft day, like announcing the schedule and like having people come out and talk, it seems so disjointed. It's like, you're one of the most popular brands out there, and you guys have everything to do with entertainment, and you kind of like suck at this. I thought that was also shocking to see. I think they need to get rid of Mel. There's no reason to have him.
I agree.
See, I actually think when it comes to Mel, if you've watched Mel for any amount of time over the last like 4 decades, that's how he's always been. I mean, that's to some degree, if you are ESPN and you're like, we're going to have Mel Kiper on, you expect this. And I actually felt like it raised the entertainment value. The whole storyline raised the entertainment value with Shedeur, because this draft, when it comes to superstars, especially, offense drives viewership in the NFL, and people want to see wide receivers and running backs and quarterbacks, all these star players. This draft didn't have a ton of that, and the ones that it did have, we kind of knew where they were going to end up. So the Shedeur storyline actually I stayed watching the draft until Shedeur got drafted. That's not something, even as an NFL fan, that's not something I typically do. So I actually, I think the whole thing really made it more entertaining. I'm going to defend Mel for a second.
Oh, Lord.
Because
Here we go.
I actually think, despite the fact that he acted like a doofus, like I'm not going to defend that because that was hilarious, but I think he's right that Shedeur should not have fallen that far. Because at some point in time, you have to say, okay, yeah, there's a lot of baggage. Yeah, there's this and that. But there is upside with Shedeur. There is. And when you're taking him, when he's a guy that people assumed was going to be drafted at the very latest in the early part of the second round, like I thought Cleveland was going to come and draft him, and with their first, they had like 3 picks in the first 5 picks of the second round. I thought they were going to take him there. Once you get to the third round, once you get to the fourth round, any one of these teams, even if you have a quarterback, is like, well, this is crazy value. We might as well take him here. And it did feel like almost like a statement from the NFL where they're just like, I don't want him. I don't want any part of him. And I'm not going to take him no matter how far he falls. The other side to that is Browns fans got to be so happy because you could have left the draft feeling totally justified in spending a top first round pick on this guy. And you got him in the 5th round.
True.
And you got other options too. If you're a Browns fan, you're like, hell yeah. Like this draft worked out amazing. Mel Kiper gave out one single A+ grade, and it was the Browns for taking Shedeur.
I think he would have given that. Whatever team drafted Shedeur, I think
they were
was gonna
giving
get
it.
that
that's what people are saying, and I think that's very funny. But to some degree, it's like, okay, you had a guy that nobody would have blinked an eye if you drafted him in the 1st round, and you got him in the 5th round. That's a pretty damn good draft.
Yeah.
I do think there are other quarterbacks that are better, that are worse than him, like that Tyler Show guy or whatever, Shaw or whatever.
I don't know how to pronounce his name.
I don't either. Like that guy is not very good, I don't think. And so for him to get drafted at the 40th overall to the Saints, and then you still have Shedeur there, I was like, look, I'm not really a Shedeur stan. Like I'm not a supporter of Shedeur. I think that the rumors that are coming out, I think largely do hold true because we saw it play out here in the draft. Like if he would have went in and with being composed and doing the things that he needed to be doing, he probably wouldn't have won the 5th round. So I think there is some legitimate argument to that side of this conversation. But I also think he is better than that, like some of the quarterbacks that went before him as well. And I think that because he didn't care and show up, I think those are why teams didn't want to deal with him.
Yeah, I think the conspiracy part, I'm never big on the conspiracies, especially in the NFL. All of those owners are arrogant, selfish dickholes that want to win more than anybody. And the fact, if you think they're really colluding to not take a guy that they think could help their team is insane because they don't care. If they think it's not going to be damaging to their brand. I think the thing with Shedeur, it's not like he was beating women. It's not like he was having drug issues. It's not like there was some other, like, I think a lot of the stuff you can largely live with. And I think they didn't take him because and Scotty said it previously. He's like, maybe you're just not that good like you thought you were. And that's fine. But now you have a chance to prove it. Just not largely on the conspiracy thing and everything that was on Twitter about conspiracy. You could tell who doesn't actually watch the NFL based on some of the comments and responses about where Shedeur was falling. I was like, oh, Christ. And then some of those, not related to Shedeur, but the draft in general. I think my favorite part is when you see people getting all excited about them taking like a guard from Western Kentucky, and you're like, you have no idea who the fuck that guy is, but you are celebrating like you have been waiting to take him all day. I think that part is always so funny to me when people are celebrating it.
Well, yeah, because they bring the cameras down there, and then like when your team picks, no matter what, you have to scream. Yeah. You're like, I'm drunk. I'm just here.
A 6'5", 300-pound man excited.
Well, you know, you're talking about some of the conspiracies that are happening or that were discussed about Shedeur and some of the fallout. I want to mention Steven Jackson here very quickly. It sparked some interesting discussion here online, especially over on X, including a comment from Steven Jackson, who's a former NBA star. In his comment, he was smoking a cigar on this video, and really the consensus that he had come to is when you're black and you're confident, they hate it. They hate it. That was kind of what he said.
Totally reasonable.
That's probably the dumbest thing I've ever heard in my life. Do you want to talk about Cam Ward, who was a black quarterback that was drafted at the 101? How about Travis Hunter? I don't know if Steven Jackson knew this, but he's also black. How about the majority of NFL players are probably African American? Like, I don't have the statistic in front of me, but I would presume that is probably the case. And so to sit there and say that is the stupidest thing I have ever heard in my life.
Yeah. It's like throwback to 2020. We saw all this shit all the time back in the olden days now. Especially, you had the Colin Kaepernick stuff. It's all the same sort of thing. And for some reason, these people who just want to stoke racial division in our society are choosing like the two industries that don't make their point the most. Like they're like, oh, racism. Look at the NFL. It's like, okay, you have thousands and thousands of black men who are now millionaires and superstars and celebrities. That makes the opposite of your point. Like, and of course, when you're talking about something like this, there are always valid points on both sides, and there are interesting discussions to be had. Not really with the NFL, and definitely not with Shedeur Sanders in a draft where, you know, countless other black men were drafted and paid a bunch of money. And so I just don't think race has anything to do with it. And what was refreshing to me is when Steven Jackson posted this and you go look through the comments, everybody's on the same page. They're like, shut the hell up, you moron. Like, nobody wants to deal with this anymore. We're all Americans and we're all happy to watch football. Like, let's just leave it at that.
I think that was the part. I think this is where I got turned off with a lot of it. Like, I don't know what they're thinking. Like, I highly doubt this is like rigged against anything for race. It was very obviously like there was, you know, majority of a certain type of person was being drafted, you know, like I don't know what more or less, you know, you could have wanted out of the situation. I think that screams to me that you weren't paying attention and you weren't actually in the weeds of like what was going on. And I hate that. I hate when it gets to that point, because it was very obviously that's what was not happening at all. And if you go through the history of the NFL, even recently, like, you know, there's stories of where, you know, even people have gotten second chances of all colors. Because one of the things I kept seeing on my timeline was them comparing to like Johnny Manziel, where he had drug issues, he had issue, you know, he was, but I was like, yeah, but then he also was like producing in the SEC. Like, that's wildly different than winning a handful of games in the Big 12. You know, that those are not even comparable assets when you're talking about production on the field. So whatever, over it. I think at the end of the day, Shedeur has the opportunity to prove
it. Before we pull out the bookmark and we start talking about the positives, I have one more question for you. Do you think if Shedeur didn't have the last name Sanders on his jersey, he would even be drafted at all?
Yeah.
I think so.
Do.
Yeah.
I think he's good enough to be drafted.
Even coming out of high school, I mean, knowing who he was, like, he was wildly touted. Like, he had offers to many different Division I schools that he could have, you know. And I think he chose to play with his dad, which I think is neat. I think he would have been drafted. I don't know if he would have been touted as like a first round grade. I think his name got him to that, if anything.
Okay. Obviously. Yeah.
All right.
That's what bore out. Yeah.
Okay, let's pull out the bookmark. Let's start talking about the positives. Let's look at the Browns quarterback room, gentlemen.
This is positive.
Well, we're going to get to the positive, but in order to do that, we have to lay the foundation. And so we're going to talk about the quarterback room for the Browns. There are 5 quarterbacks now on staff in the Browns facility, being Deshaun Watson, Joe Flacco, Kenny Pickett, Dillon Gabriel, who was drafted in this draft before Shedeur, and then Shedeur, of course. So there are 5 quarterbacks here. I'm of the consensus Deshaun Watson will never take a snap for the Browns again.
No.
Are we all in kind of in an agreement there?
I think there's a real possibility. I mean, you don't really go draft 2 quarterbacks if you plan on playing the guy you already got.
The only Browns thing that they could do right now is have Deshaun Watson mentor Dillon Gabriel and Shedeur Sanders. That would be like icing on the cake. Like, can you show these boys what to do? Like, yeah, got it.
So Deshaun Watson's out. You got Joe Flacco, who is approaching the near age of 70. But it's still, I mean, hey, look, he was playing with the Colts last year, and he wasn't playing terrible. He's not a world breaker. He's not going to win you a championship, but he's usable, right? And then you have Super Bowl winning quarterback Kenny Pickett, who I don't think is going to be the starting quarterback ever or for the Browns. So then you have Dillon Gabriel and Shedeur Sanders. And, you know, Alan, you're kind of given some positivity in the Shedeur light. And I think this honestly, in my opinion, could have probably been the best case scenario for Shedeur, for him to go in the 5th round, because now you've Tom Brady'd him in a way where he's hungry. He knows that he's not the best. He knows that he's not the guy. So if he wants to be the guy, he needs to prove it. I think him going in the 5th round kills a lot of that cockiness. I think it showcases what all the other teams thought of him, obviously, because the Browns took him in the 5th round and every team had multiple opportunities to get him. I think this is a really good indication for him that, okay, if I actually want to play at the next level, I need to stop fucking around. I need to take this seriously. I'm not the guy. I'm not somebody that everybody believes in. you get a little bit of that I'm going to hold a grudge and I'm going to prove you wrong mentality, and I'm going to come out here and try my absolute best. And if he does that, I think there is a legitimate chance that Shedeur could be a starting quarterback in the NFL. Whether that happens proves to be seen because he was just drafted and is a rookie. But I think that there is, if he goes in with the right mentality, I think there is a possibility that he could make an impact here.
I think the Browns, what they did is basically they're going to move on from Deshaun. Joe Flacco's there. I think they know they can rely on him to some degree, right? And what, in essence, what you do is you have Kenny Pickett, Dillon Gabriel, and Shedeur Sanders basically trying out for the team. You know what I mean? You're basically, and unfortunately for Kenny Pickett, with the way rookie contracts work, like he's really got to show that he belongs now, because if either of them are either close or better, he's gone. And so it's going to be interesting. They have some moves to make, but I think it's going to be an interesting storyline nonetheless. And I know that we're gonna follow it because it was an interesting part of the draft. But they have options. I wouldn't know if they're the best options, but they have options, I guess.
Options are better than no options. But I do want to say one thing, because obviously everybody and their mom has been talking about Shedeur Sanders. I want to give a little bit of flowers to Dillon Gabriel, because this short king, as nobody's talking about him enough. And I want to tell you a fun fact that I learned. Dillon Gabriel broke the record for the highest throw velocity at the Senior Bowl. He beat out Josh Allen and Joe Milton. Josh Allen and Joe Milton tied for this record with a throw of 62 miles per hour. Dillon Gabriel threw that ball 74.9 miles per hour. I know that's meaningless, but that seems awesome.
That also seems off.
It does seem off.
That seems wildly off. Also, based on your note here that he is obviously the short king. He's with Kyler Murray on the...
He is still taller than Kyler Murray, so...
There's no way that's right. Like, what's the baseball equivalent then? I always love that. Like,
I don't know. I don't know if I could throw a baseball 75 miles an hour.
No, there's no shot. I don't even think I could. No, there's no shot. My arm would fall
I maybe
off.
could throw it 20 miles an hour. If
You think
I'm
I could throw
really
it 75
trying.
miles an hour one time?
No.
And then never use my arm again?
No shot. Just like right now, just cold.
Well, I think I could stretch.
That's all we needed was stretching.
He stretches.
Well, if that's true, that's awesome. If not,
Yeah, that would be sick.
disregard.
That is kind of cool. Are we good on the Shedeur talk? Is there anything else that we didn't cover that we want to bring up before we move on?
No, the Mel Kiper stuff was hilarious. The only other thing I was going to bring up about the Shedeur and Mel Kiper was the fact that he went on this rant about how, like you said, the GMs were wrong for the last 50 years or whatever about quarterbacks. But Mel Kiper very famously, he said many dumb things, but one of the things he said was that Lamar Jackson should switch to running back, and a couple MVPs.
Wait a minute,
later, he couldn't.
Yeah, I was going to say, didn't Lamar win a couple MVPs as a quarterback? Interesting.
He said a lot. If you dig it up, and I know he's like, that's tough because it's a draft and anything can happen, but him, criticizing the NFL and GMs for not knowing what to do when he very obviously also has no idea what to do is just shut up, dude. It's okay.
We're all idiots. We're all in the same boat.
Yeah, that's
We're
all.
just on the right.
There was one last thing I briefly want to bring up. I don't know if you guys have seen any of the clips of Shedeur and Cam Ward. Like, those are hilarious. There's a couple of them floating around of like Shedeur's like kind of fucking with Cam, and Cam's like, dude, leave me alone. Like, I am here to play football. And he's like, I'm gonna go drink Gatorade because I'm sponsored to drink Gatorade. And he's like, I don't give a shit. Like, I'm here to play football. Like, leave me alone. And so, it was there. And you could tell like Cam was getting pissed. He was like, dude, just leave me the fuck alone. Like, I'm not here to like fuck around with you. I'm here to play football. So that was pretty good. All right, let's go over to a teammate of Shedeur, Travis Hunter. The Jags traded up to get Travis Hunter. This was kind of interesting. I didn't necessarily see the Jags taking Travis Hunter here. But I think it isn't the worst decision in the world. I was left a little head scratching, and what I was really interested in was whatever team chose Travis Hunter, I was very interested to see when they came out and announced the pick for Travis Hunter, what position they were going to put him at. Were they going to say cornerback Travis Hunter, wide receiver Travis Hunter, both? Because that was going to be kind of an indicator as far as what the team looked to use him as, because he is very famously, he wants to play both positions. He did in college. And so the Jags pretty much came out and said, we're going to use him as a wide receiver first, but we're also probably going to... So I presume that he'll be a wide receiver as his primary, but then there might be some install packages on the defensive side of the ball where he might also get some reps, is kind of how I took it. So for fantasy football players, not a bad thing. I mean, you know, we're very obviously... That kind of throws a wrench, and if you're not playing in IDP leagues, then you're sitting there like, do I want to take him? Do I think it's the right move here? How much time is he going to have on offense versus defense? Does his risk of injury get higher? Like, there's all these different things going on from a fantasy perspective. And so, Alan, why did you choose Travis Hunter, and what made you comfortable choosing him with the Jaguars, especially with Brian Thomas Jr. there? Because that's the other thing that kind of gets interesting, is Brian Thomas Jr. had a very great rookie season. And now it gets a little bit more interesting with another really good wide receiver.
Yeah.
There.
I mean, I think the thought for anybody going to any kind of draft is nobody's going to land somewhere where there's nobody else. You know, it's the NFL. There's players all over the place.
There's the Patriots.
You're very rarely going to just be like, oh, there's a guy like with no other competition and he's just going to get all of the touches. Like, there's a lot of teams that spread the ball around. I think for me, he's definitely going to be a wide receiver. I have no doubt in my mind. He's not going to be playing a ton of defense. I've come to the conclusion that for multiple reasons. One, for finances, it pays hell of a lot more to be a wide receiver. There's a lot of protection given to wide receiver. And I don't think the Jags are going to want him rolling up on first and second down, like trying to chop down running backs at the line of scrimmage. That's not his game. They're probably going to give him some dime packages, let him go out there and make some plays to appease the other side of the ball. But I think he's going to play a lot of offense, and he's one of the most electric players that we've seen. He's a freak athlete, and so for me, there is some risk, I think, taking him that early. But I think if you're a fantasy player, the upside is insane. Like if he can sustain the athleticism and can do some of the things that he's done in college and the NFL, no brainer. You basically have a game changing person on the field, which are really hard to come by in the draft.
Okay. Scotty, you have anything else on Travis Hunter? You want to keep moving?
Well, I guess the one question about Travis Hunter, and I think obviously, you know, his star power on the field is the most important thing, but I also think next to Shedeur, Travis Hunter had maybe the most media hype of any college athlete coming out of this class. I mean, everybody was talking about Travis Hunter, Heisman winner. One thing I think that he can give to this Jaguars organization that they desperately need is identity. I think a guy like Hunter can supply that to a team that has been lost for so long. This is a team with talent. You know, Trevor Lawrence, is he good? Is he bad? Nobody fucking knows, but we know he's got potential. It's just been like you don't really know what to feel about this Jaguars team. Ever since Urban Meyer, really, it's just been that he threw him into a black hole, and then it's just they haven't recovered.
He kicked him.
Someone like Travis Hunter might be able to make a significant dent in that problem, where you've got an identity on your team, and even if he just plays a little bit of defense, he's jumping around on both sides of the ball.
Yeah,
like that's something that fans are just going to love. They're going to buy back in because of this. I do think this move, not just for his talent, but because of his personality and because of the gravitational force that he brings to the team, can be a really, really good impact for the Jaguars.
Yep, agree.
I like that. I agree. All right, let's talk about your division rivals, the Raiders. Ashton Genty gets well. I mean, they're in your conference. They haven't been rivaling of late, but things could be on the up and up for them. I mean, they got Ashton Genty. If you look at the Raiders team last year to this year, it looks a lot different. I mean, you got Pete Carroll, they got Geno, they traded away. Well, they got your offensive lineman, and you got Jacoby Myers, and now they have Ashton Genty, who is supposedly the savior of the running back position for this rookie class. And I do think the Raiders are in an interesting spot now. They didn't draft any quarterbacks. They extended Geno for another 2 or 3, I think it was a 3-year contract. So I wasn't necessarily surprised to see Genty go there by the Raiders. I think they were looking for something that was going to make an impact for them, and I think they certainly, hopefully, got their guy. But were you guys surprised by this draft pick at all?
Not where he landed. I think in the spot. I think the Raiders. The Raiders had a lot of needs. In my opinion, they had a lot of needs. I don't think Genty's going to solve a lot of the problems that they have. I think he could be really good. I'm not sold on him being the savior of that team, and he's going to rush for 2,000 yards and do what Saquon did by any means. Basically lift an entire team by himself and probably should have been the MVP if you break down like what he meant to that team. I think it makes sense. Who knows what's going to happen? Obviously, we don't have a crystal ball. I don't. My hot take out of all this is I don't think Genty's going to be anywhere close to what people are projecting him to be. That's my opinion.
I think the most or the highest likelihood outcome for Genty is that he has a season similar to what Bijan had in his rookie season, where it's like you watch him play and you're like, holy shit, this guy is really, really good, but there's only so much you can do. It's one guy. I will say, and this is a question I'll pose to you guys. The Raiders now with relatively competent quarterback play, Genty, superstar running back, they've got Brock Bowers, superstar pass catcher. It seems like they're moving in the right direction quickly. And, I don't think this is going to be a Super Bowl winning team, but is this a playoff team? Like, looking at it from the outside prior to the season, did they make enough changes right now to be a legitimate, playoff team? Can we expect them to be in that conversation?
I think that conference is getting more and more difficult. I think it's getting a lot. If you were to ask me this maybe 2 years ago, I would say potentially, yeah. But all the other teams in that division are also playing catch up. You look at what the Chargers are doing. They drafted a wide receiver. They drafted Hampton. Like they're obviously they have the coach's name. Golly.
Harbaugh?
Thank you, Harbaugh. Jeez. They went and got Harbaugh, and like he's changing that organization. He's changing that team. And we even saw, a little bit of it last year. We knew it wasn't going to happen overnight. We knew that he was going to have to get some pieces. And I think the Chargers are a team to watch. I'm not going to say they're world breakers this year. And then the Broncos, they got Bo Nix last year. He looked decent. Sean Payton, while a scumbag, maybe knows what he's doing, right? So this division is getting more and more difficult. I don't think the Raiders are a playoff team. I don't think they're there yet. I think they need a couple more pieces. I think they need to figure out a couple more things, but I think they're certainly going to be a lot better than they were last year, which I don't know if that's saying much, all things considered, but I think that they're headed in the right direction.
Yeah, I think a lot of what you just said, plus, yes, they're in that division. That means they have to play all of those teams twice, and so that gets tough because those are teams that are really good. They have solid quarterback play. They have solid defense. They're really good teams. Any one of these teams could be playoff teams. So basically, they have right off the bat 6 games against potential playoff teams, which makes it really hard. Then the AFC is just extremely tough. So I don't think it's an indictment on maybe how good the Raiders are. I think it's just more of like they need to gel and show it and address some other needs. I think their offensive line, I think needs some work. I think there's just some parts of the puzzle, like Geno, can he do it again? He had that one breakout and then he kind of fizzled and was kind of, status quo, middle of the road quarterback. I think if he can unlock and be a little better, that's going to unlock more. But I don't think they're a playoff team just because of how stacked the AFC is top down. I mean, you had the Bengals not making the playoffs and, they have the offense they have. So I think it's just tough. It's tough.
So what you're saying is the Raiders suck.
Yeah, basically.
I was hoping you'd say that. That's good.
The Packers. Gentlemen, for the first time in over 20 years, the Packers took a wide receiver in the first round. They took Matthew Golden, which I'm not surprised they took a wide receiver because you look at that wide receiver room and it's just a bunch of guys. And that's not to say that they're not useful, but they need a true wide receiver one that can carry the brunt of it because essentially all of these guys are kind of wide receiver twos, right? Now I'm interested to see if and how Matthew Golden plays and what he can do for this team. Obviously, the Packers believe in him enough to take a wide receiver in the first round, which I don't think ever did when Aaron Rodgers was their quarterback. And and now,
did you watch the president come out and announce that pick?
Yeah,
that was hilarious.
It was hilarious. It was so funny.
He was just basically like, "We've done it. We finally took a wide receiver," and everybody was going crazy. It's like how much he was probably so stoked. He probably didn't even care. He's like, "I'm just going to announce a wide receiver, even if they didn't actually tell me to announce it. I'm just going to draft one." So I wonder if maybe that played it. I do think that was hilarious that he chose that. Kind of like to announce it in that way because I think it underscored it as almost kind of like a middle finger to Rodgers, like F you. Now we're drafting wide receivers.
Yeah. Matthew Golden, he'll be wearing the number 22, which, Scotty, you have some thoughts on this?
Well, yeah, the number 22 is just a terrible fucking number for a receiver. I don't get it. When you think of the number 22, the last thing you think about is a receiver. Maybe a defensive back, maybe even a linebacker,
That's a running back
maybe
number.
running back. You don't think of a wide receiver. But what this reminded me of is there was this headline that came out a few weeks ago that we never talked about because it's totally irrelevant, but now's a good time to bring it up, that Zach Wilson is going to be wearing the number 0, which is even worse.
No,
That's the
best.
best. That's the best.
That's like when you're a kid and you're creating a player on Madden, you're just like 99. Like you didn't give a shit, you know? I think
the number 0 is a dope number, but it should be reserved for like a star edge rusher or someone who's just like.
Are you trying to say Zach Wilson is not a star athlete, Scotty?
Yeah.
No, he's a star edge rusher.
Breaking news. Zach Wilson is not a star.
He's good on the edge, supposedly.
If you're wearing the number 0 and you're spending all your time on the bench, that's an insane decision to make. That's crazy.
It looks cool. And Zach Wilson, good looking dude. I think the number 0 fits,
22,
especially in Miami.
22 is kind of. I know all of it, since they redid all the numbers, and now it's basically a free for all. It's like whatever.
It's crazy. Zach Wilson should wear number 19. That's his number.
That's also how old he looks.
Yeah.
All right. Let's talk about Will Campbell. He's an offensive lineman that was drafted by the Patriots. This is a direct quote from him. He said, "I'm going to fight and die protecting Drake May with everything that I've got." That's fucking cool.
Sold.
That's fucking
Sold.
cool. If I was Drake May, I'd be like, thank God we got that guy.
Oh my God, he's gonna block for me. Thank you.
Yeah.
That's a dope quote. That's a dope
That
quote
is.
because I this is the underrated part I feel about draft night because obviously everybody's so excited, but like even Cam Scatabo, the running back from Arizona State, when he was drafted by the Giants, like he's just like breaking down in tears. I think under all of the hoopla about where did people get drafted and what round should they have gotten, it's like lost that there's a mountain of kids out there living their dream of being drafted and, you know, making a ton of money doing it. And I think that's super cool. I think that quote is an insane quote. I don't know how many linemen think that way. It got me thinking, like, there's definitely linemen that probably go to work and I'm like, fuck that guy. Like, if you had to go block for Aaron Rodgers last year, like, I'm not going to fight and die protecting him. I'm going to do enough so I can get paid again, but that is about it. But I thought that was really cool. I think that's how fans feel about their team. I think fans wish every player thought that way about their team when they get drafted. Like, I'm going to literally die for this team. But the three of us all go to work every day. I can't say I'm going to like die for my job all the time. You know what I mean? Like, and so I think that it's cool to see the passion that he has. And if I'm Drake May, I probably feel just a little bit more comfortable now in the pocket before I even had a snap to play with him.
Yeah, you just walk up and give him a hug. You're like, I'm glad to have you here. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for being here. Is Will Campbell a farm kid? This seems like a farm kid quote.
That's also the farm kid name.
Yeah, well, he went to
It
LSU. He looks like a farm kid. I don't know where.
I
he's from.
presume that
like-
most linemen just grew up
We'll see where he's
on
from.
farms.
Yeah, I could if I picture a lineman saying these words, I picture him growing up like
In
North
overalls.
Dakota.
I mean,
South Dakota or
he
whatever.
fits the bill of looking like a farm kid.
No, he does.
for sure. Yeah, he's from Louisiana,
Mm,
so
He could
Maybe.
be in the bayous.
Either that or he wrestles alligators.
Yeah, he's in the swamps.
either or.
Yeah.
I mean, at any rate, if I'm even a teammate of his, I know his intent even going into camp. I'm like, all right, this dude, he
This
really
guy
cares.
fucks.
You know,
This guy's gonna literally die.
this guy really
I better
fucks.
step my game
This
up.
guy fucks.
Yeah, he's willing to die for this. I'm not even really willing to die, so
Yeah.
I got to be very careful when I go against him in one-on-ones.
Alan, you brought up something that I had forgot to mention with Shedeur, and I kind of want to circle back to it. Is you had talked about these athletes living out their dreams, right? And they get to they're sitting there waiting for the call, and when they get, whether it's in the 4th round, the 5th round, the 1st round, whatever round, like they're sitting there waiting and hoping that their number is called so that way they can go live out their dreams. And this didn't happen just to Shedeur. There were some other players in this draft that this happened to, but the prank calls where they called them, like people got their numbers. What a scumbag thing to do. Like that
Yep.
to me is the most heartless
fucked up.
fucking thing you could do. And look, I'm not saying I'm a Shedeur supporter because I admittedly I'm really not. But when I found out about that, I got mad for him because These
Yeah.
like this is
That
what
was
they've
shitty.
this is their dream for their whole life. This is
That
what
was-
they've trained for and played for is for this opportunity, and you're just gonna go fuck with them. Like that's such a
Yeah, and
terrible thing to do.
In the way they got Shedeur's number is because it was the Atlanta defensive coach's son. He got a hold of the number. Apparently, that wasn't the only person they called either. They called
No,
a
there were
few
multiple
people.
people. Yeah,
And it's happened in the past as well. I forget what draft it was. Like one of the guys got it. I think it was last year's. I think that's so fucked up. That is so fucked up.
that like you're a bad person if you're
Yeah.
doing that.
Well, the kid who was calling is 21 years old. Like,
Piece of
obviously,
shit.
no excuse for it.
I'll
It's
beat the
garbage.
fuck out of
But
him.
Yeah.
this is I
Yeah.
guarantee you, this was a group of kids who was like, this would be hilarious to do, and they did not at all expect it to turn into
No,
this.
kids
They
at that
expected.
Thinking very much
Yeah.
anyways. So
No, they
you know
expected
that.
Shedeur to be like, all right, whatever, and then hang up, and then it's over. They didn't expect it to be in the news for like 7 straight
Okay.
days, and he had to issue an apology. Like, he did not expect that.
Here's the real thing. We all like. I mean, we've had our parents. If you have kids, whatever. Getting access to the phone to be able to thumb through it and then find Shedeur's number and jot it down and then run off. That
You
part of me,
planned
that
that.
part seems a little sketchy because it's like, I mean, that's obviously his work phone. Like I know those NFL coaches or, in the GMs, whomever, they have that phone glued to them, especially pre-draft, because there's a lot of back and forth. There's a lot of conversation. So for the fact that his son got access to his phone, knew exactly where to go for Shedeur's number, got the number, got it out, and then went and like pulled this off. To me, that seems just like, all right, that's like leaving crayons out for toddlers and be like, all right, don't draw on the wall. And you're like, oh, fuck, they drew on the wall. It's like, yeah, you gave him the fucking crayons. Like, of course, like, I don't blame the kid because he thinks it's funny. Kids learn, they'll fuck around. But I think
This
for his
isn't a
dad, it's
kid though. This is a 21. This is a man.
okay,
This is a
what were we
grown
doing
man who
when
could
we
go
were all
serve in our
21?
country. This isn't like a toddler drawing on the walls. This man can drive and is supposed to contribute
time
to
out.
society, and he can
Rewind.
legally drink.
All of us are 21 and we are in a college dorm and one of us got access to that number. Are we not going to prank call?
No, I had
Yes,
Trey
we-
Lance's phone number, and I didn't
That's
do
different.
that.
That's different because you knew somebody that knew somebody. That's different. That's totally unrelated. If it was like a celebrity,
But
you had
it's
no idea who
not.
they were, but you got to
But
prank
it's
call. them.
not.
Oh,
Well, that's what I'm saying. Like, this, obviously, there's no excuse for it, and the kid should be, I don't know, he should get his ass beat.
he should be
or something.
spanked.
No, he should.
publicly
At the
by
same time-
That's
Shedeur.
exactly what I was going to say. The Falcons need to bring him out week 1 into the middle of the field, pull his pants down, and bare ass whip him with a belt, and have
Yeah.
his dad do it.
Yeah.
Whatever jersey
In a
number
non-
Shedeur chooses, that's how many times he should get whipped in the
Yeah,
ass.
and a non-sexy spanking. We got to make this not
Yeah.
sexy at all. It's got
I
to be
want to see
like,
some welts.
yeah, it's got to be bad, like bad spankings.
Bad.
That's our solve. He has to get spanked publicly. I think everybody.
Flogging.
The hand
It's
wringing. They want the Falcons to lose draft picks. There's a lot of people out there that are like the Falcons should lose draft picks.
I'm in for
Honestly, I don't know what kind of regulations go into having, there's obviously a bunch of like confidential information that is on whatever
Yeah.
device that the kid got. So like, how is it?
That's the burden of proof.
There should
You don't
probably
know.
be some regulations around, basically like classified information NFL version. Like if
Yeah, but it's not like you have like military secrets on there.
Yeah, you got
Which-
phone numbers
which-
though. I mean, you got phone
Military's
numbers of
just
some of the most
texting
high profile
secrets
people
anyways.
in the country.
That's
Like
also true.
that's a serious thing.
Yeah, I don't know.
He could have sold that on Reddit for $1 million.
I know for a fact, and I might be totally off here. At 21, with a few drinks in me, and you gave me a random player's number that's getting drafted, and I don't know him, and I just have it, I'm 100% prank calling him.
I never did anything with this much of an impact, but I've definitely done things that are dumber than this. It's like this isn't even as close to as dumb as
No.
a 21-year-old can act.
No, and I wouldn't have thought about it anyways. I'm not saying it's right what I would have done. I'm just saying I wouldn't have thought about it. I would have been like, this will be funny, and let's do it because it's funny. That would have been my only thought
but
process.
Your dad now could lose his job because of that.
Yeah, well, it's my dad's fault.
Suck.
Leaving his phone around, leaving the crayons on the fucking floor.
We all learned some lessons now, didn't we?
All right. Let's put a bow on the draft. Is there anything else that stands out to you guys? What did you like? What did you didn't like? What is there anything that really stood out to you guys? There's a couple that I could start. There's one that comes to mind to me right away. The Bucks drafting Igbuka. I probably mispronounced his name, but
And Mika, yeah.
Yeah, that to me, I was really disappointed with the landing spot. Excited for the gentleman as a wide receiver, but I think that's telling that maybe Mike Evans is kind of starting to come down the mountain a little bit. Chris Godwin struggles with injury.
Yeah, he had a bad injury too. Like that's a tough one to come back from. And Evans missed a good chunk of the year last year for an injury.
Yeah. The other one that stood out to me was the Bears went really very heavy on offense, which was kind of surprising. They drafted another wide receiver and a tight end. So Cole Kmet has been there, and I think maybe his days are now limited with Loveland landing there. And they had Roma Dunze and DJ Moore, and then they went and got another star-studded wide receiver. And so from a fantasy perspective, a lot of mouths to feed. And it's kind of interesting in that way, but those are two things that kind of stood out to me as kind of like maybe some head scratchers a little bit.
Yeah, I think a good one with the Bears. I guess I wanted to ask you this. I think philosophically, I think you're going to see a lot of teams change how maybe even we think of it. I think it's going to totally hose fantasy football because if they're going to keep lengthening the schedule, we've seen how, brutal these seasons are, the playoffs, everything, it's a big toll on a lot of these guys. And I think you're going to see a lot more teams starting to layer up talent because you're going to have guys go out. You're going to have injuries. You're going to you need to have insurance plans to like continue to be productive. The one injury you probably will never have is the quarterback unless something crazy happens with the amount of protection they give the quarterback. So it's like, need to have a lot of wide receivers, need to have some tight ends, need to be able to work on the different packages. But I think for the Bears, I did think that was weird. And I thought about it because we've said it previously on the podcast. It's like when you have a rookie quarterback or a rookie contract quarterback, just load up, just start loading up because you can ride the wave for a little bit longer. So I think the main thing for us that sucks is because I know we all play fantasy football. So we're like, God damn it. I don't even know who the hell I'm going to pick out of this bunch, but we'll see what happens.
While we're talking about the Bears, Caleb Williams is running out of excuses, man. This guy's got to show up this season.
He does.
He really does.
Yeah.
Yep.
And I think Ben Johnson is gonna. I think we just need to see improvement. I don't think he needs to come in and be Josh Allen or Patrick Mahomes, but I think we need to see a clear step forward from last year. And I do believe that we will. I think Ben Johnson is gonna really unlock some of the potential that is Caleb Williams because Matt Eberflus, in my opinion, was a freaking goober and didn't do anything to, from a developmental standpoint to give anybody hope. It was just like Caleb was out there playing hero ball trying to do his best. So I do expect to see some progression in his abilities to play.
Yeah, I agree. I think that's it right there. I think it's Ben Johnson because a winning recipe is not Caleb Williams scrambling for his life and trying to make a play every time.
Yeah.
I think there's a time and place for it, and knowing that he can do it is great because he can be an eraser in certain situations, but it's like they lived with that last year. It was like, all right, you scramble for 5 seconds and find somebody and they will try to catch it. And that was kind of basically what I felt was the whole offense.
Mm-hmm.
That's a good point though. I think this draft is kind of weird. I kind of liked it because there wasn't anything super obvious. I don't think anybody did where you're like, wow, after this draft, you're like, they all have it figured out. Or I think overall it was pretty solid. I think some teams that are at the top kind of address some needs like the Eagles and the Chiefs. And I think a couple teams that were kind of head scratching on what they did, but I mean, see how it played out. Like Denver, I think reached for some guys that maybe they didn't need to. I think the Bills took some guys at certain spots that maybe I don't feel like they need to, but
let's pause on the Bills here for a second because there was a quote that came out. It wasn't really a quote so much as what had happened. So the Bills GM, Brandon Beane, he went on a podcast. It's called Pay the Bills Pod. And it's a pretty popular podcast for Bills fans.
It's a solid name for a podcast.
It is.
Mm-hmm.
So Bean went on this show with the host, and he kind of dug into him a little bit because there was a lot of controversy about the Bills not taking a wide receiver, and why didn't you not address this? And Bean said, you guys were bitching in 2018 about Josh Allen because you want a Josh Rosen. And now you guys are bitching that we don't have a receiver. I don't get it. And then he went on to statistically kind of showcase you don't know what you're talking about. He brought in a bunch of statistics stating we scored the most points in the NFL last year. If you look at the entire record, he goes, we scored more points than the NFL Super Bowl champions. We are doing things right here. And you want me to go get a wide receiver? He's like, stop bitching.
Yeah. That's
We
hilarious.
did it. He's like, we lost Stephon Diggs, and you guys are sitting here complaining. And guess what? Our offense actually was even better without Diggs there from a statistical standpoint. So shut up.
This is a good public service announcement for everybody. We don't know what the fuck we're talking about. Nobody does. Like,
Nobody does.
Those guys get paid a lot of money to obsess over this all the time. And just kind of let them do their thing.
Yeah.
That's hilarious that you said that.
And we get paid no money to get mad about it.
Whoa.
So I'm gonna keep doing
Yeah, we
that.
don't get paid very much. We get paid in friendship and hugs.
And sometimes the occasional smooch on the cheek.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think of anything else that was kind of interesting.
Falcons
or
trading up
splashy.
for another edge rusher.
I think that's
I
fine.
thought that was interesting. But
Yeah.
I actually, that pick, people were hand-wringing about it a little bit because, what's his name, Pierce, kind of unproven, a little bit smaller. But the Falcons needed pass rushers. That's what they needed, like more than anything else. And they said, we're focused on that. We're going to make it happen. And I actually think that looking through all the draft grades and stuff, draft grades are usually funny because it's like nobody knows what the fuck this means. Nobody knows how anyone's going to turn out.
You're going to take my burn.
I feel like every fan is happy with how their draft went, I think. Like, there wasn't anything so glaringly stupid that happened that's going to leave a fan being like, what the fuck are we doing? Like, even Browns fans, like, okay, you ended up with Dillon Gabriel and Shedeur Sanders. It's like, I don't know if either of those are going to be good, but you got good value, so maybe. And I think that's kind of where everyone's at. Like, you look through these draft grades, and now everybody's between A- and B-. Like, nobody had a completely failing draft. It was pretty standard and pretty solid across the board, I thought.
Yeah. The other one that comes to mind, I like Tet going to the Panthers. I really do like that. They needed some help there. He's a big-bodied outside. So I'm excited for him. And it was kind of funny. A reporter asked him, like, right when he got drafted, he was sitting there at his like media interview, and the interviewer asked something along the lines of, what do you think you can bring to this team that all the other wide receivers on this team can't? And he just looked at the guy and was like, yeah, I'm not going to answer that. And I was like, I like that guy. I'm
Smart.
like, he's somebody
listening.
that doesn't want to sit there and just dog on his new teammates and be like, I'm going to bring a bunch of swagger and I'm going to catch all the balls. He's like, no, I'm not going to talk shit on my teammates.
Yeah, but if he was honest, he would have said, I don't know if you've watched this team for the past decade.
Yeah, right.
But I can catch the ball.
I'm actually kind of encouraged with the Panthers because it's like Bryce is starting to figure it out. Like, I know everybody threw dirt on them pretty early, but I think they have something there. I think all in all, I think the draft, NFL, I think what they do, it's supposed to be a feel-good thing. I think that's probably what irked me a lot about what Mel Kiper was doing, because it was starting to not feel like a feel-good thing. It was like, oh, there's some big conspiracy and everybody hates this one guy. And I'm like, there's a lot of teams getting better. There's a lot of interesting storylines of where they're taking people. What does that mean for their roster moving forward? Are people out? What's going to happen? And I think the draft's always kind of fun. Just through and through, just because it's neat. You know, you got teams getting better, worse, you don't know. Like, nobody knows. But I think it's just supposed to be a celebration. So agreed.
It is.
Agreed.
All right, let's go to LeatherBrainz, where we are going to bring.
It's pretty.
Thank you. We're going to bring some maybe NFL conversation, maybe not NFL conversation, but some things that are being talked about in social media and our own lives. Some we want to bitch and or rant about. Scotty, you always got something to say, so let me hand the microphone over to you. Let's kick this thing off, my friend.
That's how I'm known. I'm always the guy who's able to bitch about something.
The curmudgeon
That's true.
is what I would label you.
Resident old.
The thing I'm going to be old about this time, I was on the internet. I was on the Twitter, the X.
Internet. I
You
was
put it in
on
a
the
new
old-
AOL disk and
I
fired
was
it
trying
up.
to think of how to say that like an old guy. I was on the X.com, the everything app. And there is a massive, massive conversation surrounding the idea that 100 men could beat a gorilla in a fist fight.
I've
Or
seen
like kill the
this.
gorilla with their bare
Yeah.
hands. I am astounded at the number of people who are like, 100 guys? Yeah, they could take a gorilla, no problem. And I feel like they just have not thought this through. So before I get your guys' answer.
Hold on. Before you move forward, I got to ask Alan.
Yeah.
Do you think 100 men could kill a gorilla? with
No
their hands?
fucking shot. The hard thing with this is it's not like you combined all 100 men in all their strength against this. Only a handful of you actually get to go against this. Like, if you put 100 guys in a circle, if I'm in the back, I'm not contributing yet until all of you get knocked out. So
Yeah.
even if this plays out, all 100 guys, like the first handful of guys that get literally ripped in half, I don't even know how the other 70 even like move forward with continuing this whole exercise.
That's the thing. People are like, yeah, well, humans have intellect. And I'm like, yeah, humans have intellect. When they see their friend get their head ripped off their body, they're going to say, my intellect is telling me to leave. I don't want to do this anymore. This is insane. So let me just tell you something. A silverback gorilla is a monstrous beast. This is an animal that is strong enough to pick up and throw a smart car. Like they can lift and throw 1,800 pounds. A smart car weighs 1,500 pounds. They can run 25 miles an hour, which is like faster than Usain Bolt. Their bite force is 1,300 psi. I looked this up. That would destroy any single bone in your body. Like one bite would just turn your arm into a bag of meat. Like there's
I don't
no
know
way.
what I would do first to fight. Like none of my punches would do anything. There's no way.
No, none of you. And the skull of a gorilla is over twice as thick as your skull. So even if like you tranquilized the gorilla and knocked it out and just laid it on the ground, you couldn't beat that thing to death if you tried.
there's
Even
no
if
way.
it wasn't fighting back. Like you
gotta
could punch it
blind
in the
it.
head 100
That's
times.
what you
You're
gotta
going to
do.
get tired.
You gotta
poke him in his
out.
eyes. Yeah, maybe if you poked him in his eyes and like.
Although a blind gorilla honestly might be even scarier.
Yeah, true. Just
Because
swinging
it's unpredictable.
aimlessly.
Yeah.
Just pissed. Now he's super pissed. That's the other thing I thought of. What are the parameters around this? Like, because if the gorilla wants to run away and you have to go chase it, like, then what?
Can't do that.
Now what do you have?
Just
Like,
swinging from the trees.
even if you don't actually like, nobody gets like beaten. Like, if you have to go beat him up, like, how are all these 100 guys going to go chase down this gorilla and beat him up? There's
also,
no way.
why is the gorilla violent? Harambe was in a pit with a kid, and he was just big chilling.
If you put
I
100
think this-
humans in, and started backing him into a corner, I think he'd figure out how to be violent in a hurry.
Well, sure, but why are we getting violent with this?
I don't
with
know.
this
I don't-
gorilla?
It's for
things always-
competition.
These things always
Just for
fascinate me. The internet is so interesting place.
I
agree
do want
with
to tell
though.
you guys, I brought this up to a friend of mine, and this is a friend that Slapdog, you definitely know. I won't say his name because he sounded like a fucking moron in this conversation.
I think I know who you're talking about.
And I said, how many people you think it would take to kill a gorilla with their bare hands? And he said, he thought about it. He's like, gorillas are pretty big, they're pretty strong. I'd say like 18. It's like, what the fuck are you talking about?
Yeah. I think the listen, this is like, if you see like war movies or you hear like old guys recounting about world wars or whatever, like as soon as you see that first something happen, you're like, oh shit. Like you may have the best mentality unless you have 100. Okay. The only thing I'll say, what if it's 100 guys hopped up on meth?
They'd have a better chance.
Yeah. I
Still
think
no
that's like,
chance.
if you did like World War II, like German soldiers where they were all on meth, like
Mhm.
charging at, like, I think maybe because they wouldn't feel
Okay.
pain for a while. Maybe.
So this got more interesting. Instead of 100 men, it's 100 Nazi soldiers. How many Nazi soldiers could take down a gorilla?
Well, they don't
That's
have
the real
guns.
question.
It's still
No
hand to hand.
guns.
Well, if
Yeah.
they're all hopped up on their meth, maybe. I still don't think so. I think they would just die and not realize it.
The biggest thing with this is what you said at the very beginning, which people are not thinking through the fact that having 100 men is useless because you're going to get like 10 of them to be able to
Yeah.
touch the gorilla at a time. Like
Yeah.
just practically speaking, 100 men are not going
You're
to be
just
able
waiting
to do
your
shit.
turn to get broken in half, basically.
Yeah.
You're like, oh, am I up? Like, can somebody tell me what's happening up front? That's a
Okay.
good one. I like that.
That is a good one. Alan, what is your?
My burn is for anybody seriously doing any post draft grades of any of the teams where they're like, oh, that's a B minus, that's a C plus draft. Nobody fucking knows. You have no idea what these dudes are going to produce. You have no idea how this draft's going to go. Like you'd have no idea who's even going to make it to the field. You have no fucking clue. I equate the post draft grades. If you've ever done a Yahoo league where they like email out your draft grades, like, oh, this guy won the draft. It's like just based off your like arbitrary list of where you think guys should go, and that's where they took them. I think anybody doing serious post draft grades of teams and saying somebody was a winner or loser, I think is an idiot because you have no idea. That is my burn.
Nobody knows. I would like to see.
That's
I
a
would
good
like next time I see someone that does one of those great things and puts it out and thousands of people are reading it. I would like to ask them for their detailed report on Brock Purdy. Like, what did you say about Brock Purdy before he got drafted?
You have no idea. It's like off the top. I think everybody remembers the first like 2 or 3 rounds if you're like really into it, and then after that you're like, I'm gonna go mow real quick, and like you check your phone, and you're like, oh, okay, that's pretty good. And like you don't know, you have no idea what's gonna happen with these guys. So to say like emphatically one team won the draft and one team lost the draft, I think is just so dumb.
Yeah, the best way to do it is just wait 5 or 6 years and then go look back at the draft class.
That's what everybody else does. They're like,
that's what you do.
Even the Chiefs, after a couple Super Bowls, were like, oh, that was actually a really good draft. But like in the draft, nobody knew. Like I didn't like when they drafted Patrick Mahomes. So that shows you everything anybody else knows. So you just got to wait. You just got to fucking wait.
All right. My LeatherBrainz this week is none other than Jordan Hudson.
Oh.
I don't know if anybody knows who Jordan Hudson is, but you probably would know her more well known as Bill Belichick's girlfriend. So I don't know if anybody's seen this, but Bill Belichick, he was getting interviewed by CBS Mornings, and so I don't really know the intricacies of this, but essentially, it sounds like Jordan Hudson is kind of with Bill Belichick when he does most of his interviews, or in this case, she was there at this one. And the interviewer, Jordan was off camera, and the interviewer asked Bill Belichick how him and girlfriend Jordan Hudson met. And she interrupted from off the camera and said, we're not talking about this. And then Bill Belichick, he did not answer after that. So I'm of the mentality, it's not good. Wherever they met, whatever they were doing...
I caught like a little bit of this. I'm guessing she was an OnlyFans model or like a call girl.
She had to admit, I think she was a call girl.
I think it was one of those. I think it's one of those.
Because people would find her OnlyFans. So that makes me believe that.
Sure, I would have found her somebody would have found her OnlyFans.
There was a story that came out when their relationship first became public. And the story was they met on an airplane. Yes. And Bill Belichick was talking to her because he was helping her with her homework.
That is the most 5th grade made up story I've ever heard in my whole life. We met on an airplane and you helped me do my homework.
Yeah.
That is 100%.
That's the one I believe.
I don't believe it. Because 100%. Why would you not just say that? Why would you not just come out and say that?
Because it's crazy. When you say when a 70-year-old man has to help a woman with her homework, that's a very clear illustration that they should not be dating.
No offense to this young lady. I highly doubt she was doing homework on an airplane. Number one.
Agreed.
Number two, there's no way that Bill Belichick gave a shit about her enough to say, can I help you with your homework? There's no way any of those line up. Have you seen her?
She's hot. Bill Belichick's a man.
Bill Belichick is 73 years old. This woman is 24 years old. And we know the character of who Bill Belichick is. Gronk just told a story on his podcast about how Gronk was being like, I'll truncate the story, but essentially Gronk was saying it took 10 men to tackle him. He was like toting that around on NFL media as a rookie. And then in the game, he got fucking destroyed. Bill Belichick, Monday morning, they're watching film and he roasts Gronk in front of everybody. And it's like, I thought it took 10 guys to tackle you. And they just went clip over clip of Gronk missing blocks and like getting his ass kicked. That's who Bill Belichick is. Bill Belichick is not helping a 24-year-old woman do her homework on a fucking airplane.
You're thinking about this all wrong. Bill Belichick is clearly a horny old man.
Okay,
and he was sitting next to a hot chick. And he was like, how can I possibly get this chick to notice me? Because we know for a fact, Jordan Hudson, if she's not smart enough to be doing homework on a plane, as you say, she definitely doesn't know who Bill Belichick is.
I didn't say she wasn't smart enough. I just said the likelihood of just like randomly doing homework on a flight, I don't think, for him to notice, I don't think is
I think
is
it's
thing.
a
You've been on an airplane.
Hilarious...
You know how hard it is to do anything on a plane?
Well, I play cards on the plane sometimes.
Here's what I think happened, because I'm reading
Mr. AOL.
I pulled up an article right now, and it said they met in 2021, and that's where they were seated. And then they didn't come out as a couple until 2024. I'm guessing that she is kind of like a call girl-esque, where maybe he was flying her around or paying for her to do stuff and meeting up, and then developed into this relationship. And I think that is the story that I would believe if it came.
I would believe that a hell of a lot more. And then I pulled up NBC News here, was kind of talking about it, and they said, this is the quote verbatim in the video. He said, the interviewer said, "How did you guys meet?" And then a video cut to a camera that captured Belichick's back, and Hudson is sitting at a desk in the background and said, "We're not talking about this." And then the interviewer said, "No," and she goes, "No."
Yeah. See, I think there's
Not only that, NBC Sports reported that Hudson has a very active role in Belichick's professional life and, quote, is exerting a very high degree of influence.
Okay, so here's what actually happened.
Well-
They met on a plane doing homework. She realized, wow,
No.
this guy is such a great tutor. Maybe he could teach me how to be a businesswoman too. And Bill Belichick said, yeah, you could be my intern and my girlfriend. And so he's teaching her how to do all that.
Why are
I
you
think my favorite part-
defending this?
That's what I'm saying.
It's
I think my
hilarious.
favorite part about all of this is that Scotty's all in. Like he believes it. He's like, yeah. I mean, come on. You're just doing homework and you start
Yeah,
dating.
doing homework on the plane, which is that's a funnier story than anything else. That if it's true. That's
think-
funnier than her being an OnlyFans model. That's funnier than everything else. That he's just like,
That's true.
oh, here's this
If we're going
college
for funny
student that I'm gonna
factor,
help with
if
her
we're going
homework.
for like horny paying for her and
Yeah.
paying for her to do things, he's probably
Yeah.
putting her through school, and then that's probably what happened.
I will say I am pretty disappointed that Bill Belichick just lets this woman dictate what he's interviewed about.
But are we not surprised? I mean, Bill Belichick's 74 years old. He's
Listen,
definitely
Wouldn't you
not a
expect
young,
it?
spry
Once you
guy.
Hang
turn
on.
once you turn 74 years old, you're willing to say, "Shut up, bitch." Like that's what I would expect him to say.
I was just gonna say we got our significant others down here, and had them talking, we would all feel the same way. We're like, well, yep. She has a big
Yeah, no,
influence in
you're
my
just going
life,
to nod
too.
your head and be like, yeah.
Yep. Yeah.
Whatever she
She's
says.
waiting for him
She's-
to keel over.
Listen, yeah, she's super attractive.
She's
and
planting her
he
seeds.
knows he's
And he's
outkicked.
playing his.
He's outkicked his coverage by a long shot, and I think knowing he doesn't have very many rounds left to play, I think he's like, I'm just gonna hold on to this one and do whatever she says until I go. That's probably like a more peaceful way to go out.
Did it?
You're talking about him like he's on his deathbed.
Well,
I mean, he's
not young.
He's approaching.
He's not young.
I'm not going to say he's going to die. I hope he does. Like, I'm not rooting for. We don't root for injury. We also don't root for
Okay.
death.
If I were to like make a bell curve of life, is he closer to the end or to the middle?
Oh, he's closer to death than
I'd say
he's
he's on
ever
the other
been,
side
but he
of
could
that.
have another 30 years, maybe.
30.
I feel a side bet
Yeah.
coming on. I like a 30-year bet to play
I
out.
am not betting on Bill Belichick's life, but if I did,
Over
talk
under
about it.
80. 83
We'll talk
years
about
old.
it during golf. I think I could get you to bet on it.
yeah, I mean, I would. I don't know who we're getting here.
Let me in on this. I want to bet.
Yeah, let's do a side
I would
bet
say,
on
what's
Bill
the
Belichick's
average? The
life.
average life expectancy of a man in America is like 75. That's got to go way up when you're a billionaire. So
Average life expectancy.
Yeah, not when his heart is doing what it's doing now with this 25
Dude,
year
he is-
25-year-old woman.
His heart rate's skyrocketing.
You know what I mean? That
is
blood pressure.
Is it healthy
everything.
enough for sex? That's the question.
Yeah, I've always wondered that.
75.8 years old is the average life expectancy for men in the United States.
Yeah,
Yeah,
so
but
I don't know.
I think once
Over
you
under
get close to
83.
that, once you get close to that point, and you're still kicking and still
Taking the
walking
under.
around and being perfectly healthy, I think your chances of living a lot longer go way up because the average life expectancy takes into account people who have been like decrepit since they were 40.
Yeah.
So Bill Belichick's
Okay.
already proved that he's
Fair,
healthy.
fair. I think okay.
I think
you
health is a
mentioned
stretch.
something, and I don't know if we need to dedicate a whole episode to this. Like, how do you go to your doctor and be like, "Is my heart good enough for sex?" And do they tell you that?
You have to have those conversations at 73.
No,
And you know that
you
he's
just
not
send
keeping
it.
her around because she's.
You just let it go.
No, yeah, you just go for it, and if you die, you die. If you die having sex, that's a win. Deal.
True. Yeah, then they get to lie about how
That's worth it.
like, oh, he died
On the toilet.
He,
exercising.
he died laying the pipe. R.I.P.
He died laying the pipe. Could you imagine like the Patriots like funeral procession that they would have and like announcing and like honoring him and everybody's just like, oh man.
And she's pregnant.
Oh shit.
Oh, that's tragic.
Oh, that'd
That's tragic.
Oh, South Park got a hold of that.
You think his son Steven is jealous?
I don't think
No.
his son Steven knows where he is.
If you looked at that guy, I'd really
he's
believe.
a weirdo. He's a coach
He-
somewhere, isn't he? He's coaching some college team, isn't he?
Oh wait, there's a Steve Belichick. Oh, that's the Bill Belichick Foundation. He's an American college football coach. He's a defensive coordinator at North Carolina with.
Oh yeah, I
with
guess
Stab.
that makes sense. Oh,
Yeah.
I wasn't wrong.
No. God, he looks so creepy.
That's amazing.
Oh my
I like that.
God.
Yeah, that is
He
weird.
looks so creepy.
I think we call BS on how they met. I think we call BS. It
I
doesn't
agree.
matter now. Whatever. They're a happy couple, but
No, I want some journalists to get into the weeds here and figure this shit out for us.
I'm not sure they're happy.
They're
You're not
happy?
sure who's Belichick and Hudson are
Yeah.
happy?
Would a happy couple be so pissed to discuss how they met?
That's what I'm saying.
That's why
they're
they didn't
hiding
meet
something.
on the plane.
Well, if they just would have doubled down on the plane thing, okay.
I'd be like,
don't
if
think
I was
they
Bill,
would
I'd be
do
like,
that,
yeah, I gave her $200 to give me an over the pants HJ. What up? You know,
What up?
Yeah. OTP HJ on a plane. You ever
everybody
done
be like,
that?
oh, cool. I
I'm a
totally get
badass.
that. I was doing the homework for her while she was, we were
Working on
aggressively
me.
petting.
Aggressively petting my snake.
Oh shit!
All right, we have gone
boys.
so far. We've derailed this completely, but hey, that's what LeatherBrainz is all about, baby.
Yeah.
Let's get out of here. It has been a hell of an episode. I appreciate you guys doing this. As always, have to give a shout out to our Fantasy Brainz team. Go check them out Thursdays. They're putting in a lot of work, ladies and gentlemen. So if you're in the fantasy football weeds right now, it's dynasty season. The NFL draft has concluded. If you need to do some scouting reports, if you need to get some more information on some of these rookies, I could not recommend going and checking out Fantasy Brainz enough because they're doing a phenomenal job at breakdowns and stuff. So Thursdays over on our LeatherBrainz, all of our social media profiles, give us a follow, hit the subscribe button. You guys know what to do. We appreciate you. We love you. Let's get the hell out of here. We
are
Out.
If you enjoyed this episode, make sure you tune into our new releases every week on your favorite podcast app. Follow us on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook, and check out LeatherBrainz.com for all of your fantasy football needs. And remember, Brainiacs, a championship should be more than a fantasy.